It's showtime, baby. Welcome to Recognize Maine on RecognizeRap.com. And as you can see, I got my green Celtics jacket on. That's because Saturday night, a very important Game 7 going down in Boston. It's the Celtics going up against the Milwaukee Bucks. And you already know who I'm rooting for in that one. But I'm not here to talk about playoff basketball. What I'm here to talk about is Maine's up-and-coming artists and DJs. And on this episode, we got one of each. We got an experimental rap artist, Max Felker, joining the show, and DJ Lowdown Dirty Shane of WMPG Radio. He's joining us as well. Super excited to talk to both of those guys. Plus, at the end of this episode, we got a sneak peek of new music from two Maine local artists, Fenimore Dreams and Treelock. They're working on a collaborative album. So we got a sneak peek of one of their songs on that thing. Super excited to play you guys that song. But first, let's welcome Max Felker to the show today. So, Max, I know that you build software professionally. I was curious, is this something you do as money for your music career? You know, do you invest this money into your music career, or is it just another one of your passions?
That's a good question. I've been building software. I love building software. It's cool. You know what I mean? It's a fun thing to do. But the truth is that like my love for music kind of tops everything. So like I've been doing this. You know, everybody's got like they got a day job and a night job, right? Mine just happens to kind of bleed over into each other because the software that I've built software for a lot of musicians. I built websites. I built all that kind of stuff. So it is a passion of mine. But at the end of the day, what I really want to do is get up on stage and rock and roll. I think I'll always be building software my whole life. Next thing I'm going to do is get into robots.
Well, robots. Well, I'm curious to see if one day robots are going to take over the rap game. Well, I guess only time can tell for that one. Now, not only are you into building software, you're also really into photography. So why is photography powerful to you?
I've been doing photography for a long time. I started off with a 74 Minolta. It's a film camera, 35 millimeter, and I took that. It was my father's camera before me, and so it was kind of like a rite of passage. My father took a lot of photos when he was young, and so I followed in his footsteps. So I've been doing photography for a while, and really what I like is being able to capture moments in time that aren't ever going to happen again. I've always been doing photography because it's something that you look back on. People look back on life and they go, oh, I wish I had captured this moment or saved that. And I've always been in the background snapping pictures of people. And, sometimes people get annoyed. They're like, dude, why are you always shooting with that camera? And then, a year later, we're like, oh man, look how fun that was. So it's another passion of mine. I got a lot of them, but I really like taking photos. I like getting gritty, like kind of depressing photos, as well as like I'm also a big fan of architecture, so I take a lot of photos of architecture. And but a lot of people, with the music business, a lot of people hit me up. They're like, yo bro, I need this, I need that. And so it usually ends up coming out to a photo shoot, and then people want like high quality content. So I try and give out deals. Like a lot of photographers around here, either they don't really know what they're doing or they're charging an arm and a leg. So what I do is try and make it a little bit affordable and just like bring them in, take photos and give people high quality content, because you don't need to spend $400 on a photo shoot. You can do something cheaper and look just as good.
Yeah. I totally agree with that. And so that's really cool that you're doing photography on the side as well. And that's one of the things I've been telling my girlfriend, because she's starting to get into photography and she has a really nice camera too. And like you mentioned, photographers do charge an arm and a leg sometimes for photo shoots, whether it's for senior photos or weddings or just for music photos like you do. So I try to tell my girlfriend, like, look, maybe you could start out doing some free photo shoots, and then down the road you start charging a little bit, but it doesn't have to be half as much money as these professional people that do it, because at the end of the day, there's still a market for it and you're still going to make some money off it. So that's really cool that you do that also. Now, I know for the viewers that are tuned in right now, and they see your beard on the screen, they're probably thinking, damn, like this dude's beard is out of this world. And it's way, way, way better than mine. I just got to put that out there. So, but you did recently decide to cut your beard. So why did you decide to do that? And why was it so long in the first place?
So when I first started doing hip hop, I started growing my hair out. And that was about 2.5 years ago. So I started really doing hip hop like early 2015. Before this I did a lot of punk rock. I played punk rock for a long time. And after my father died and had some friends kind of fall out, I quit punk rock and decided to take a break. So in 2015, I started working with a couple people and started doing some hip hop. So I started growing my hair out. And so I grew my hair out until it was like really long, and I grew my beard out. And I made a song called Of Course, which is about like feeling regret about moving on and losing people as you go like through life. And pretty much the video, it's out now on YouTube. It's about to be on Vivo and stuff. I get dragged to death, and I end up dying in it, and I cut my hair and I cut my beard, and then the next video that you see me in, I have short hair and short like no beard. And that's a song called Mad Max, where I essentially I die and I come back. And I dropped Of Course on Good Friday, and I dropped Mad Max on Sunday, on Easter Sunday. A little bit of a little death and rebirth kind of thing.
Okay, so you dropped Mad Max and Of Course, like you said. You also have another song that I fell in love with as soon as I heard it. It's called Loss Is the Only Thing We Share. Now, we're going to play this song right here, and then afterwards I want to ask you a question about this one.
Everybody that you're missing, everybody that you wish you could be here with, sitting, hugging, kissing. Everybody that you think about every day, not a day go by when you don't think about them. Man, I got people in my mind that I'm missing some. It bring me to my knees, raise my hands up. Everybody, yeah, go ahead, raise your hands up. Everybody got somebody missing, yeah. Everybody that you're missing, everybody that you wish you could be there, hugging, kissing, yeah.
So to me, it sounds like that song is, about experiencing the loss of somebody close in your life. So what is the inspiration for that song?
This song is about loss. It's about how loss is the only thing that everybody, regardless of like who you are, like how old you are, what age, you know what I mean, like what race you're from, like what beliefs you have, what religion, it doesn't matter. The only thing that people understand is when somebody dies or you lose them and you can't get them back. Like everybody knows what that feels like. So for me, I actually had a lot of people die in my life, but that one is about my father. I lost my father tragically a couple years ago to drugs and alcohol, and I've been going through a lot with that. So that song is about losing people and letting everybody know that I know what it feels like to lose people.
And I'm so sorry about your father, and that he passed away. That really sucks. And this is a tough question to ask, but because I know you did say he passed away of drugs and alcohol problems. What do you think the root of those problems, where'd that come from?
So I think it comes down to being unhappy. Like a lot of people, they want to be, like everybody wants to be loved. Like Pablo Neruda said it best. It is the fear of being alone that brings us together. And being alone and being afraid and not knowing that people care for you and love you drives people to do crazy things. And one of those crazy things is going and using substances and abusing themselves. So like a lot of my family members who struggle with drugs and alcohol, it was because there were things that were in their past or that were happening in the present that they couldn't deal with, and so they turned to drugs and alcohol to placate themselves and to keep themselves in a spot where they didn't have to work on it, and it was easier than actually going and doing it. You know what I mean? Like, so like I don't know if you ever listen to Lil Peep. You know what I mean? A lot of people listen to him now because he's dead, but you know, there's this one song he says, you know, it's easier to just do drugs and keep it this way than to come and talk to you about how I feel because I'm so torn up about you. Like he talks about, like, you know, it's easier to just be wasted and not feel it than it is to feel it and confront it. And so I think like a lot of people when they're dealing with addiction, it's because they're trying to get away from something else. They're trying to get away from the pain. You know what I mean? Like I know that like my father's addiction, it was because he lost his family. Like, my father was like a very successful man. He was very and then he ended up going through this very painful part in his life, and he went from being on top to losing everything, and then he spiraled out of control, ended up becoming homeless. You know what I mean? Like, this is a man who was like running a huge business and then was on the streets begging for change. And that can happen to anybody, and everybody thinks, addiction is just like a thing that you can get over. It's a thing that you can just you can just stop it. Like, and that's not how it works, right? Like, pain comes from within, and people just don't ever really deal with the things that are at the core. And that's what's sad is that when you talk about addiction and when you talk about pain and suffering, it's all related because we don't take the time for ourselves and for who we are, and sit down and actually go after things that are happy. Like, people wake up and they smoke a cigarette, they smoke weed, they take a bar, they drink whatever to kind of just get away from that. And the truth is that those things are fun in the right time, in the right place. But when you start doing that all the time and you start it starts becoming who you are, that's when you lose yourself. And I've seen a lot of people, like, I had best friends from elementary school who I see on the streets now. You know what I mean? Like, it's crazy.
Well, rest in peace to your father. He sounds like he was an amazing guy, and I can relate. I have a family member who suffers from alcoholism, and it is very, very tough. So I wanted to ask you, do you have advice for those battling addiction?
So I would say the first piece of advice I got for anybody who's going out there and struggling is to know that you're not alone. There's a whole bunch of people out there that feel just like you, and I've also been there. So the first thing to know is you're not alone, and that there are people out there that love you. And that's the second thing is that you need to reach out to the people who do love you, who love you, and maybe you're afraid that you're going to hurt, and ask them to forgive you. But also, you need to learn how to forgive yourself. A lot of people, they beat themselves up so bad because they say, I'm not good enough, I'm this, I'm that, I'm horrible. And like, the truth is that everybody makes mistakes, and everybody will do the wrong thing at some time. But at the end of the day, like, you need to find who you are and love yourself and allow other people to love you. Like, this world is still going to keep going regardless of what happens inside your brain. Like, the waves are going to crash, the sun is going to rise and fall, like, the moon is going to come out, and it's how you spend your time on this earth that really matters. And so, a lot of people say, like, call these helplines and da-da-da. That does help. Like, there are professionals out there that will help. But the truth is to begin, you got to realize that, like, the life that you're living is not the life that you want to live. Like, if you're out there, like, addicted, and you feel like you can't get away from it, it's probably because of the people that you hang out with and the shit that you do. And if you really want to change your life, you got to look in the mirror and talk to yourself. It's you. It's not anybody else. It's you. You got to look at yourself and talk to yourself and be honest with yourself.
And I do appreciate everything you just said. Not only does it mean a lot to me, but for the viewers out there who have a loved one who suffers from drug problems, alcoholism, I'm sure they can learn a lot from what you just said. So, but I do want to end this interview on a high note. So I know you have a very special relationship with Miho, who used to be the DJ on Hot 104.7 Maine. And you actually posted a picture with him on Instagram, and you captioned it, "Ride or Die." So why is your relationship with Miho such a special one?
Miho, he's a good friend. Yo, man, Miho, I love you, man. And like, honestly, the reason is because he's always treated me with respect, and always treated me with like, he's always been there for me. When I asked him to be there for me, he was. Like, when nobody showed up, he showed up. And I think that he can say the same thing for me. He always told me, like, there's all these people out here, they always want to hang out with me and stuff like that, but like, when I call people to hang out, when I try and make music, nobody picks up but you guys. And so, like, me and Superstar Freddy and Mike Clouds and Sparksy, we all just ended up becoming really good friends with Miho, and it started off with like, hey, like let's hang out, make some music, and then it went to, we were doing a show here at Thompson's Point. We did a sold out 700 person show. Miho played for one of our shows and killed it, and then at that point it was like it was literally like we were like the three amigos. Like we would just go everywhere and do stuff, and like I helped him pack up and move. He left here and he went down to Miami and got a huge radio interview spot. Like he went from being on Hot 104.7 and kind of grinding and not really getting a lot of recognition around here, and now he's on one of the best spots in Miami, you know what I mean? And we always would just get together and talk about stuff, and like he's a homie that I could not talk to Miho for 10 years and then show up and he'd greet me with open arms. Like I treat him closer than some of my family that I know, you know what I mean? Like he's a good friend of mine, and I've been trying to get down to Miami to see him. So Miho, if you hear this, bro, I'll be down there soon. All right.
Yeah, I mean, Miho, he is such a genuine guy. I mean, I was a intern briefly at 104.7 this past summer, and I remember Miho, he told me, because I used to spend some time with him in the studio in the afternoons, and he was like, look, man, I mean, if there's anything that you want me to show you, just, don't hesitate to ask, because I was in your position once, so, if there's anything I can teach you in this radio industry, just feel free to ask. And, I appreciated that a lot. And, Miho, like you said, he's doing amazing things in Miami. So, well, hey, Max, thank you so much for joining this episode of Recognize Maine. And I appreciate everything you had to say today. And now I'd like to transition and talk to DJ Lowdown Dirty Shane, who is, like I mentioned at the beginning of this episode, a host on WMPG Radio. He has a show titled The Beat Don't Stop. And right now we're going to play a little sample of that show for the listeners out there who are unfamiliar with the show.
All I know is I feel it.
And anybody that messes with me or my organization or my family is in trouble. I'm from the old school.
Party people, are you ready? Are you ready? Are you ready? So party people, are you ready? Are you ready? Are you ready?
1, 2, 3, 4, get it!
Let's dance. Let's dance to the drummer's beat. Let's dance.
So as you can tell, it is a old school hip hop show. A lot of 80s music, 90s music. So Shane, first of all, welcome to the show today. And I was listening to a recent show of yours, and you did play some Africa Bambaataa music, who was accused of child abuse. But before you even played his music, you did make it very, very clear that you do not support what he did, of course. And you just wanted to make that clear. So what I wanted to ask is, where do you draw the line of supporting an artist versus not supporting an artist? Because I notice a lot of the newer, younger artists in rap these days, a lot of them are or have been accused of, either rape or domestic violence or things of that nature. And that's something I kind of struggle with, because it gets to a point where it's like, man, even if the music's still really good and I enjoy the music, it's like, how can I support this guy who's, on camera beating his girlfriend or accused of rape? It gets tough. So I wanted to ask you, where do you draw the line in those situations?
Yeah, I think, the thing about the Africa Bambaataa allegations is it's tough because they're only allegations, but, I always want to believe the person who comes forward who shares those kind of stories. In the case of Africa Bambaataa, he has the whole Zulu nation that also appeared on all those records, and those are artists that have largely been forgotten. So part of my show is shedding light on those old school artists who may have gotten forgotten about. So it's really important for me to continue to highlight those artists, even though I don't support Africa Bambaataa because of the allegations against him. And honestly, I'm not someone who listens to a whole lot of new hip hop. I've really kind of come to feel like I don't really support what hip hop has become in terms of the commercial version that you hear on the radio. There's a lot of stuff that I personally have a hard time with. You know, I come up in the era, you know, my favorite artist when I was in high school was Public Enemy. And, you know, that real political and positive, uplifting, socially conscious hip-hop is what I came up on. And, you know, a lot of the stuff that's out right now really runs contrary to that. So I don't really support many, if any, of the new artists that are out now.
Okay, and that's totally understandable. Now, on your show, you do like to highlight artists, you know, from week to week. So I wanted to ask, is there an artist in particular that you hope to, you know, feature on an upcoming episode?
You know, I'm planning for next month that I'm going to do a feature on Dougie Fresh. He's a guy who was really influential in that kind of middle school era of hip hop, the, you know, mid '80s. A guy who really mentored a lot of artists and made some amazing records that time really hasn't been too kind to, and people don't really remember them well, but are amazing records. So for my May Artist of the Month, I'm going to be highlighting Dougie Fresh.
Okay. I look forward to that one for sure, because, you know, personally, I don't know too much about Dougie Fresh, though I feel like I can learn a lot from that episode for sure. So, all right, this is a question I've been wanting to ask you. So, I got a lot of friends and a lot of peers who think, you know, radio is just dead. You know, they don't even listen to terrestrial radio no more. They just listen to, you know, Apple Music, Spotify, those streaming services and playlists, those things. So what is your response to someone who says, you know, terrestrial radio is dead? Because me, I mean, I work in radio myself, and I like to hope that it's, you know, a media that continues for a long time. So how would you answer that question?
Well, you know, I think that is something that is really interesting right now, because, you know, you have pockets of radio that are really excellent, that really are programmed locally, with community and college radio stations like WMPG, and you have, you know, some local stations in the bigger markets, you know, places like Boston and New York, LA, that, you know, the programming is done locally. But unfortunately, a lot of commercial radio, the programming is done by the major corporations that run them. You know, you hear the same 20 songs over and over. And I don't blame people for not wanting to listen to the radio. I don't listen to the radio much, just because I'm not interested in hearing the same 20 songs over and over, even if I like them.
Yeah, you make a good point. I mean, a lot of the commercial radio stations do have small rotation of songs. But like you said, college radio is definitely special, and I missed that already. I had a hip-hop show for 3 years in college radio, and it was, you know, the time of my life. So, you know, those college students or even high school students tuned in right now, make sure to definitely get involved in college radio. I promise you'll love it. So, Shane, is there anything else you'd like to share with the viewers today?
Yeah, well, you know, I think that for folks who love hip-hop, make sure that you understand where it comes from. You know, check out the old school artists. You know, goes all the way back to pre-Sugar Hill Gang, you know, 1979 Rapper's Delight. There was stuff being made. You can check out YouTube and hear a lot of those recordings of the late 70s shows, Grandmaster Flash, Furious 5, Fearless 4, Cold Crush Brothers. Definitely check that stuff out. And tune into my radio show, The Beat Don't Stop, every Wednesday night, 10 to 11:30 on WMPG. You can stream it over the web at WMPG.org, and you can catch us here in Southern Maine at 90.9 FM. So if you love hip-hop, check out what the old school was all about every week with me.
Hey, you heard what the man said. Wednesday nights on WMPG, his show, The Beat Don't Stop. Make sure to tune in. And lastly, guys, we got that sneak peek I was telling you about at the beginning of this episode. Fenimore Dreams and Treelock, two local artists from Maine. This song right here is called Snowfall, and it's off their latest project. Let's check it out.
Could it be so? Spend it all.
I just love that one. It's just got a different feel to it, and you know me, I love autotune, so I can't wait to hear the rest of that project. And I just want to thank everyone for tuning in to this episode of Recognize Maine on RecognizeRap.com. Leave a comment and let me know who you'd like to see featured on the next episode.